Okay guys, so today let's pick up where we left off with this wing. I've shown that, for those of you that missed the last video, this wing sits in there like so. I showed in the last video how to get this armature set up and going. But I'm going to apply the clay today, and it's not hot out, so that's nice. So this clay is just the right texture for me for doing this. And stick around a little bit in the video. I'll show you the secret for moving quickly through this texturing process. Hopefully in this video you'll get a really good idea, and maybe I can get most of this wing done before this video ends. And there's a secret that can expedite your efforts, and I learned this from one of my mentors, and he doesn't really know how much he taught me, but I was really paying attention as much as I could. His name is Dan Chen. Very good sculptor, very excellent painter, and he's a good man. Anyway, I learned a lot from him, and I'll show you one of the things that I learned from him today, so let's get going. So with this, you know, you can, if the paper takes, you can smear the clay on there. If not, you know, apply it on your armature wire here first. The thing about wings when you're sculpting them is that they're going to be thin, and I mean, you want them to have a certain lightness to them so that they look good. And then you also want to make them so that they're thick enough that you can make a casting of it successfully. And I normally don't do how to sculpt videos because for me the process of sculpting is a lot of give and take. You know, you put clay on, you take clay off, and to me I kind of work out some of my ideas in clay. And there's enough videos out there on how to sculpt. Maybe I'll speed up this portion here. So this video is going to be about how to sculpt wings. And maybe I'll put a little picture up here, wherever it's going to appear, somewhere over there, of my reference material, Byzantine art. I remember the Byzantine art from my art history classes, and such a distinct style. The lines are so zigzaggy and whatnot, but they had a lot of cool concepts as far as visually how to put things together. So, alright, I'm not going to bore you here. I'm going to speed this up and throw some notes on the screen. If you guys haven't liked or subscribed yet, please do that, and check out the description. I'll play some good music, what I consider good music. Okay, so here's what's up. I got the wing covered with clay. I'm going to have to reshape it to the shape that I want. And this is very soft, and I may have to cut that off because I don't want that touching it. Anyway, so I noticed that the hole is opening up bigger with the weight also. I have a piece of brass tubing here. I think that this is, you know, it's obviously a little too large, but once it's in there, that should help. So I'm just going to shove this in there. So that'll give me a spot every time to register. and hopefully, you know, that will help stop it from digging into my sculpture, you know, pulling out. Now with that said also, I can see where I can get away with adding a little more clay to the wing. And with these wings, there's a lot of bulk. If you ever look at an eagle's wing, of course, you're going to be using photo references mostly. These are much stronger right through here. You know, if you hunt duck or geese, you'll know here also that this region is thicker if you've examined the animal. So there we go. I think I am going to cut this off. Just don't need it. So for about 15 minutes of work, that's not bad. This does have some thickness, but it still doesn't look terribly heavy. I mean, it feels a little heavy in the hand, but when we mold this, the spout is going to be here, and we might run a tippet like this somewhat so that we're not, I mean, we could put a vent here, but we have to make sure that when we pour it in, it ends up, you know, that would never fill. We have to, you know, the water table. Anyway, this is all going to fill in pretty nicely, I think. And I'm going to work out a couple other details to kind of smooth this. So at this point, we want to get this as smooth as possible and try to tighten things up to make it, and when I say smooth, I mean your primary form, because these dips and hollows aren't doing you any favors at this point. So, okay, so now that I've pretty much got this level-ish, the way that I want it, I've used the rake tools to help kind of smooth that down on the front. So let's just roll with that for a second. So this is the secret tool. You get birch, Baltic birch ply. This is a 1/2 inch. And it's just a scrap piece. That's all it is. I suppose you could use any block of wood that has a grain that's exposed. So this can leave nice textures. And even sides where you don't think that there's any real ridges. So this is not ply. This is a solid piece of wood that I've cut into a block. And this one has the natural grains of the wood. Okay, so let me just try to explain this again. I took the time to build this up so that there is a overall form here. You know, it's not flat, it's arching that way, and then this is built up as the creature, actual winged creatures do, like ducks or hawks or whatever, geese. So on this side, after I did the area that I wanted to divide the wings up into, I kind of made a pretend line, I guess you could say, of where I wanted these to go. I'm using the side of my knife to just kind of smooth that to make a suggestion as to the vein and the feather. But I started out with just this block of wood. This is solid wood, this is not ply. And there is a natural kind of, the rings of the wood will begin to show here. So I just took one side and I went down like this on the one side. And I tried to keep my point the same going all the way down, where I start and then drag off. So I'm dragging. And when it came to the other side of the feather, I have a loop tool that I made. And this loop tool, I just wrapped a piece of wire around a wire. I'm not going for the realism. I'm going more for the effect. If it looks good and it homogenizes with the piece, I'm going to be fairly satisfied and happy. So after you do those lines, I recommend taking this solid block again and just gently knocking back those last lines that you do. I'm all about layers. And if you can get more layers going on, you know, you start to hide your technique if that's something that you're interested in doing. So, you know, when it comes to doing wings, I feel like the more uniform you are, the more the wings aren't going to look good. That's my personal aesthetic. And, you know, nature always does it better. That's gonna cast nicely, I think. That's got enough thickness to it, maybe like 1/8 of an inch up here, or moving into like 1/4 of an inch. And this part up here, closest to the body, this is about 3/4 of an inch. So it starts to move into a 1/2 inch, 3/8, 1/4 inch, 1/8 of an inch, down here to about 3/16 of an inch. So we've got the clay on the wings. My reference material has a wing that's styled like this, and I know this is not a naturalistic type wing. This stick is just so I know not to pass this line, because it's going to go on the block. I don't want the wings to cross into this space. And I also am using this as a stop to keep the wing from moving any farther forward. And I had to trim up the wing, so I had like a feather coming off here and maybe here. Anyway, I had to trim it up because this dial hand, there we go. Oop, there we go. So this that comes out here is going to stick out about 1 inch, and I need to make sure that the minute hand clears that as it spins around. So I just went ahead and clipped that wing off, altered my design a little bit, and some of these recessed areas, you might like to know this. I was taking clay and I put just a little bit on there. Like, I really like the folds here and I don't want to hide those. So but I did need to fill some area in there. So I was putting the clay, you know, on there as such. And that doesn't look half bad. I'll leave that there. And basically trying to get in there where my fingers could not. So that looks pretty good. Weather's going to be getting warm a little later, so I need to do this while it's still cool in my studio from the night air. You can see here that I now have the clay applied to the wing, and I wasn't really happy with the way that the texture was going on its own. So I wanted to sculpt the form on there in its primary stages. We have primary, secondary, and tertiary. And well, anyway, I have this set up. I put brass tube in her back to hold this, and I put this piece of clay here to keep the wing where I want it. This is fine. meaning where I want it, because it has to block the or stay free. The arbor hole to stay up against it. So what I did to create these spots or feathers, here's a little example here. So I would put down, and working from inside out because we're layering, if you're curious about this. So I just put down a dot, and then I smear it, and then I smear where I'm going to put the next layer. And if you want to kind of push that down a little bit, that's the general idea. And this is where you have to really use your sculpting skills, because you're going to find that there's a certain flow. Maybe you can see that, maybe you can't. There's a certain flow that you can't just, if you put this on here and just, take it this way, you're going to have a different effect. That line's going to show up differently. So I was trying to create a sweeping up motion to juxtapose, there's a art school term for you, against this direction. So this one sweeps up, this one sweeps down, and that creates balance in the piece. And then from the front, it still looks like it's going up for the most part. And then again, this kind of leans over that way. And these are just smaller dots. So again, start at the bottom and move them on up. Start with the bottom dot, smear, and then put the dot on top and smear. And that's that. So on these bottom feathers, I drew where I wanted them to go. And again, this is based on the Byzantine art style, those drawings of angels, or mosaics rather, of angels. So these feathers aren't completely stylized, they're not realistic, but we want to allude to the naturalist quality of them. So this is solid block, this is not ply. And then the natural grain is going to create something that's a little more favorable, I think. And you'll have to practice with it. This is not something that comes a little naturally. But with your style and your handling, much the way that you write your name, it's going to be unique to you. And now up here, it might be wise to not use a flat surface on something that has a curve. I have a tool, and this by itself is, again, rudimentary, basic in its essence here. But this gives you more of a round form that's much easier and tight. And then when you have your such as it is, lines, you can go over it with the block and you kind of knock down those high points and it creates a different texture. You can even gently press it with your finger. And again, it's personal preference, how far you want to get into it. Some people, the realism is where it's at for them. And they're going to try to match nature. And, if that's your tribe, so be it. I'm going for effect. And be mindful that as you do this, you're going to have to turn it over and eventually work on the back. And maybe just come up a little on the inside to kind of meet it. And since I'm suggesting feathers at this point, if I stay on it too long, what it's going to look like is messier and messier, and you're going to lose that effect of impression and start to create more of a, you're going to look like someone who's attempting to create realism. So Anyway, I'm only going to go so far with that and then I'm going to stop. I think overall, as a sculptor, the impression of the 3D form itself is what matters. The texture is so secondary. But, you know, sometimes you know, it's about that texture on a 3D form. But for me, I'm not going to lose sleep over this. I'm only going to go so far with it. And be patient with yourself. Hope you guys enjoyed this. If you like this, please like and subscribe. I appreciate it. Make sure you check out the description below to see if there's anything that you can use in your studio. Save you the trip. I am an affiliate with Amazon, and you'll be sent over to Amazon's website, and whatever purchases you make, they can have it sent to your front door, okay? Alright, so if you want to support my channel also, you can make a contribution or donation at paypal.com/me/JonBurnsFineArt. We give 10% to charity, sometimes a little more. Appreciate that. Please share. The old fine art methods of sculpting the figure and these things are really a lost craft, so it's up to people like us to share it, to keep it alive. Thank you so much. There's greatness inside you. Get out of your own way. And when I say that, it's a term of endearment. Stick around for the next video. In the next video, I'm going to be talking about drapery, and I'll show you how I approach doing folds. Here's a little sneak preview right there. And I can do a little promotion for one of the books that I really like. And for those of you that watch my channel, probably already know who I'm talking about. But I'll show you some tricks for drapery and some of the basics there. Some of the basics. We're doing drapery and how to approach it. Okay guys, signing out.